Good morning. I'd like to call the regular scheduled meeting of the Board of Selectmen to order. It's Monday, January 4th, 2016. It is now 8:30. First order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. I'd like to ask Selectman McKelvey to lead us, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Gary. Item 2 is a public hearing to obtain comment on an ordinance to amend the code of the Town of Guilford, Chapter 241, Streets and Sidewalks. Chapter 241 is being amended to further regulate the excavation of town highways. And ask Town Engineer Jim Fortley to give a small presentation. Morning, Jim.
Good morning. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Back in October, after the last couple of winters, we took a strong look at the way our ordinance was developed regarding repair of highways after the installation of utilities and anybody entering into the highway, drainage or whatever. It was necessary because there was an acute awareness that once the structural integrity of the pavement is interrupted, or by excavation or cutting it, it's very hard to reestablish that. And this is a kind of a thinking that's been going on, I see at the state level and as well as the communities. What we did was say, okay, our regulations are pretty precise in that we had an ordinance that said if you do get if you want a permit to dig in a state or a town road, you need to get a permit from the town engineer. And then part of the next step was that we developed sometime back in the 80s rules and regulations regarding what you needed to do to get that permit. As this was developed from that point in time, it was decided by the board to take and meld those rules and regulations into the ordinance and make one ordinance, which is very common among many communities. And as a result, we have a draft of an ordinance that reflects both the old ordinance, which says you have to get a permit, and then a lot of the rules and regulations updated by Pam Millman to reflect changes in the state law and other provisions, as well as change some things that we wanted to do. And this is where it gets specific to the engineering department. Rather than have a situation where if you dig in a road, no matter who the entity is, you are responsible for just repairing the road, not only temporarily, but permanently. We wanted to say, okay, we have a situation, you dig in the road, you put a temporary patch in, but the town now will take responsibility for that permanent patch. And to pay for that, you will have to set up an amount of money that will predetermine based on the size of the area you're going to excavate, that you will pay for the town to go back and do that work. This is something that we want to make sure that we have a consistent policy of how this is handled. I think we reflect basically the experience of the gas company. They've had over the last couple of years one contract to come back and do all their permanent repair. We would go another step further in widening what they are responsible to do. Not only repair the pavement between the cuts in the pavement. You see when somebody excavates on a road, they saw cut the existing pavement, and then they go back and patch that. Well, if you go back and look at a lot of the old cuts that were made, some distance from the edge of where they cut, and the pavement itself, the repair is okay, but if you go back 6, 12 inches, you start seeing distress signs where the pavements have weakened because of those initial cuts. What the new thinking is, if we go back a foot from the edge of those pavements, recut, and then repave it after a time that the pavement is allowed to settle, that initial repair is allowed to settle, and then reseal it, that we will get a much better patch, and a permanent patch to the roads, so we don't suffer a lot of the distress we've noticed in the last couple of years. So that was the whole intent of this. It's been gone through by town council, I think it reflects only her thinking, other towns' thinking, and as I said, all the updated state regulations and laws governing state highways and town roads. So I think it's concise, yet it covers all of our situations as far as excavation of town roads. And it's been on the town website for a month. I haven't heard anybody comment on it one way or the other. Most people are pretty much aware of that we have to take care of these roads. We have a huge investment in them. And if you, just like anything else, if you want to come on and you want to do work in the roads, you have to follow the rules and as we prescribe. That's about it. I think it's just reflects, again, our last couple of years' history. And we have to, we've got so much invested in these roads. We just can't be ignorant of the fact that when you do ruin that structural integrity, you have to repair it better. It's better than they have in the past.
Thank you, Jim. This is a public hearing, so are there any questions from the public or any comment? If there are, please come to the table, state your name and address, please, for the record.
Morning, everybody. Ken McKenzie, 6 Broad Street. Morning, Jim.
Morning.
Couple of quick questions. Maybe we've done it before, but correct me if I'm wrong, you want to have the utility companies post a bond, which will be used to pay for the final coating, which you will be responsible for, correct?
Well, it's not the utility companies. The utility companies under state law are above that. The state law says that they will be responsible. We can't have the utility companies, but I'm more talking about the individual contractors who come in and work. If you have a water main in the street,
Yep.
and you want to add a service, it's the individual homeowner and contractor who is responsible. It's not the water company. So
Right.
it's geared to those
So it's
contractors.
private repair of utilities primarily, but
yes.
not the utility companies.
Correct.
So if the bond is going to be posted, why wouldn't one solution be to have them post the bond and have it be contingent on their doing the final repair themselves to what you deem to be satisfactory?
It sounds, that's the way we do it now. Okay, this is the way we do it now. The problem is that you have a situation where you have people go out and do the repairs. We don't have enough staff to be there watching everything going on. We would rather have one basically professional paver go in and do all the repairs rather than have, and I'm not pointing fingers at anybody, an individual excavation contractor do a repair who doesn't do it every day. They do it 3 times a year, 4 times a year. They don't have the equipment or the proficiency to do it as well as a guy that is a paver who goes out every day and paves. And that's our intention, to try to get that kind of level of expertise doing the patching. We have exactly what you say right now. That's part of our rules and regulations right now. We found that it works most of the time. It doesn't work universally.
So, getting back to it again, I'm sure there are a lot of people that can do this patchwork and do the paving, and I'm sure that, as you suggest, that there are only several, 3 to 6, whatever the number is, that do it to what you would deem to be professional standards. I would guess that there aren't that many people that are doing the patches, and that it's unlikely that there are dozens of them out there that are doing substandard work. So while I agree with you that it might be difficult to police, I find it hard to believe that you aren't able to identify which of those contractors are the ones that are the repeat offenders and hold them to a higher standard. The reason I'm going there is, to me, my concern is that we are changing a regulation based on your recommendation, and you are going to be the final power broker, if you will, at the end of the day. And I am generally, this is nothing against you, but to me, from a legislative perspective, it appears to be, and really is, a conflict of interest when you have the person recommending the change also being the one who is going to then determine which people are going to do now a significant amount of incremental work that they weren't getting before. So that's my primary concern. I don't mean it against you, to me, it is, on surface, it looks, optically, to me, it just doesn't look great.
I understand what you're saying. Just give me back up. And when I made this presentation back in October, what I said was that we would put a bid out in the spring. That we would get a price from whoever wants to bid, but we want to make sure they're pre-qualified.
Right?
We wouldn't be, I wouldn't be, or any engineering or public works official wouldn't be selecting, say, okay, we'll have Ken do this job, and we'll have Joe Mazza do that job, or whatever.
Don't put me in there.
We're not doing that. We're saying, okay, let's have a bid, a competitive bid, where we would get, based on the size of the patch, a price. And at the end of the year, we would have to say October 15th, we would go in and do all the work that we're going to do. And it wouldn't be up to me to just choose that person. It would be a competitive bid based on real numbers of what it would cost.
What our procedures are now for how we do it?
Right
In the
now,
process. No, I mean, in the town, we have a process.
We have a process.
We have a process.
Pre-qualified bidders,
That's
and
right.
they set a price for a year or whatever.
At the
But whatever,
last,
any work in the town, not just
right.
this.
okay,
Yeah.
so that sounds great. At the last hearing, though, the way I interpreted your comments, you indicated that you were going to choose 2 to 3 individuals to do this work, and that it would be your responsibility. You did reference competitive bid, but it didn't really sound competitive to me. It sounded more like
Let me just interject there that any bid that's recommended has to be approved by the Board of Selectmen. Jim does not have, or any department or commission does not have sole discretion.
Agreed.
It is with the approval of the Board of Selectmen.
Right, but you're not going to ask him to come forward every time a patch needs to be done on a piece of work, or is the
No,
bid going to be
no.
for the season?
For the
No,
season.
it's a blanket that he comes.
Okay, so there will be 1 or 2 people chosen at the beginning of the season that will get,
Out of
one.
just one?
hundreds of people who might bid.
Yeah, as long as they're qualified. I said
Hundreds
2 or
don't
3,
bid,
just
but-
saying a number out, but
Okay.
as long as they're qualified.
Okay,
You
so
know?
one person or group will get this contract for the whole
Yeah,
year?
yeah.
It's not unlike sidewalks, right?
Correct.
We've been on
But Ken, the way
Yeah,
the
but
bidding
there've been
is,
some concerns about the way sidewalks have been handled in the past in Guilford too, which you're well aware of, so.
right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm talking about the process, though. You have a
I
pre-qualified
understand.
person now. That individual may or may not perform. I don't know about that discussion.
Right.
Talking about the process is similar.
Right.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
that's all I have, thanks.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
Jim, you mentioned that, that you were gonna look at expanding the space area for structural reasons, or
Yes.
how does that affect what's currently going on in terms of property owners that are closer to the road, and how does that determine what their current properties? That
There's
make
no
sense?
effect on that.
No effect?
No,
Okay.
no. It would only impact them if they actually hired somebody to do
Okay,
some kind of work in the street.
okay.
I mean, that there would be a larger surface area of pavement that would be disrupted and repaired.
So they would have to know that going forward?
They would have to know to go in.
Okay.
I'm sorry, one quick question. Do I need to come up again? To Cindy's vein there, is it safe to assume that there will be no incremental tax or cost to the town due to your wish to widen that patch? Are all people, the private people are going to, so this has no incremental cost to the town for this?
None,
Okay.
I mean, no cost.
And Jim, just so I understand the math, if, say the patch is 25 square feet, and you've put $10,000 in the bond,
Yeah.
and the bid comes in for $5,000 to do 25 square feet, the contractor gets the 5 back?
Sure,
Okay.
yeah, we don't, we want to
We aren't
cover
gonna
the
make a
cost.
profit on it.
Well, if you'd like me to, I think we could, but no,
Okay.
being facetious. There's no profit.
And you're setting the bond at a number that you're very confident will not be exceeded.
The bond would be set based on, early in the year, we would go out to bid. and I'll just say, we'll do this probably around April 15th, because that's when the actual asphalt plant's open. So we would get a bond based on that square footage with a certain amount of understanding that if the contractor exceeds that, and so we would add that into the contract. That would be based on, if you did 50 square feet and needed to disrupt 50 square feet of pavement, it would be based on the replacement of that pavement. That's all.
Thank you.
Is there anyone wishing to ask any more questions or make a comment on the proposed ordinance change? Okay, seeing none, I'll ask for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Public hearing is now closed. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Okay, item 3, approval of minutes, and we said we would table that. Do I have a motion, please?
I
So-
move to table it.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Item 4.
Joe, you might just add, we're tabling it, I just
Because-
want to avoid it, but it wasn't in the packet.
wasn't in
so
the
we didn't-
packet, so, right.
Some of us didn't get a chance to read them.
Okay. Our clerk was on vacation, and
Now, can we talk about, how do you get vacation, Tracy?
she has a very benevolent boss, that's why. Of course, she won't agree. Item 4, discuss and take possible action on an ordinance to amend the code of the town of Guilford, Chapter 241, Streets and Sidewalk, as a result of the earlier public hearing, which we just had, by the way. Okay, do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion on the motion? Gary.
I would just comment that, and I know Jim travels the same road home that I travel to my house, and it's very obvious that over the last couple of years, there's been a number of these situations where a contractor has put in utilities to a house, they've paved it, they've gone away, and a year later, there's a big divot, and it's a problem. So I'm glad we've hopefully resolved this.
I'd like to
Do we have-
also add that our in-house counsel, Pam Millman, has done a lot of work on this particular ordinance. If you look at the original section, it was one paragraph. And she's expanded quite a bit. And she doesn't get paid by the word, by the way. She's on salary, so. Her and Jim has worked extensively on this to encompass a lot of the situations that we have encountered over the years in dealing with roads and highways in this town. I think that it's going to help out tremendously. So I would highly recommend that we pass the ordinance as presented. So, any other further comments? Okay, I'll call for a vote on the motion. All those in favor? Aye, unanimous. Thank you. Item 5, appointments and resignations. I have one, 5.1, act on a resignation received from Margie Schultz from the Veterans Advisory Committee. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye, that's with regrets. Request for the use of town property, item 6, 6.1 and 6.2.
I would move that we approve the 2 sign placements and the 1 use as described in the agenda.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, correspondence. I have one that I'd like to advise the board about. I had a visit from a very nice young lady the other day. Actually, it was right before the holidays. Ms. Gabriela Garcia Perez came to me with kind of an informal petition signed by about 25 people on Dunk Rock Road. I was very impressed with this young lady. She's 13 years old. And she's getting into politics real early, and I said, so what do you want to do that for? But kidding around. I was extremely impressed with her efforts about, her concern was the speeding on Dunk Rock Road, and I forwarded this petition after meeting with her and her family to the police commission, since the police commission, as you may or may not know, is the traffic authority in this town. I did meet with the chairman of the police commission, Mr. Michael Micolay, and he was impressed to receive this petition. And the police commission is going to take a look at it. And I've also talked to Mr. Portley, who was just at the table, about to see what sort of maybe traffic calming devices we can put on Dunk Rock Road. Dunk Rock Road is a unique situation. It's a road that part of it is going to be abandoned, but the part that isn't is still going to remain a town road. There are school children that wait for a bus there, and unfortunately, from what I understand, where they wait, they stand in the street. So it's become a bit of a dangerous situation that the town is going to take a serious look at. But I was really impressed with her tenacity and her, taking a real serious look at this problem and coming to see the first selectman and writing me a letter and handing me this petition. So I thought I'd bring it to the board. And I wrote her back, and I'm going to give you copies of her letter and my response back to her. But I think this is, it says a lot for her, and certainly golf for the way our kids are being educated in civics. So it's great. And I thought I'd bring it to everybody's attention. So good work, and I'll keep you abreast of the follow-up on this project. So good. All right, the second thing I want to bring to your attention is the town did receive an award from the governor. I wish he'd give us more money, but that isn't coming. We did get an award from the Connecticut Economic Resource Center of South Central Region, and this was for the Guilford Commons project. Brian McClone, our Economic Development Coordinator, represented me at the affair. I was on my way back from vacation, and I was on a plane at the time and couldn't represent the town, but I thank Brian for being there. And we did get this award from the for our economic development efforts. It's starting to pay off. I wanted to show that to everybody. I'm going to hang that up in the office. And the governor cited us with an official, Charlie, want to hold that for me? Official statement for receiving that award. So we're making headway on economic development. The awards are great, but what's even better is we're going to start adding to the tax rolls. So kudos to our Economic Development Commission and to Brian McClone for all his efforts, and I wanted to show that to our citizens and to the Board of Selectmen. Great. Thank you. Okay. Any committee reports?
Well, Joe, I received correspondence
Sure.
from Charla Nish, which is regarding the Lake Quanapug situation, which I believe they're gonna come and do a presentation
Yep.
during later, so I just wanted to acknowledge that. She basically just talked about a lot of what I believe they're gonna present, which is the lake needs attention. And I told her that I'd follow up after the meeting, depending on what the board decides going forward.
Anybody else? Right. There's no committee reports, old business. I don't have any. Anybody? New business, just to bring up that we will begin our budget hearing presentations in this room on January 20th and 21st. You all have your schedules. The department heads and boards and commissions are right now preparing their budgets to be submitted to the finance department by the end of this week. So I hope you're marking your calendars to be present on those days. Again, for the public's information, those hearings will be televised, or they will be taped, I should say, and then televised on GCTV. Okay, anybody with anything else? Okay. Public forum, limited to 3 minutes on any item. Joan, I think you want to have something for us?
Mine might be just a little bit more.
I think we can let you go beyond
I
that.
appreciate it. I've handed out this pamphlet, Lake Quanapag, Path Forward, and I'd like this to be also attached to, entered into town records.
Sure.
As most of you know, I'm president of the Friends of Quanapag, and what I'd like to bring forth is, since Lake Quanapag is one of the 3 jewels of the town of Guilford, on par with the Guilford Green and the Marina, I'm here today to request a budget, add an item to the budget for Lake Quanapag, not only for this year, but in future years to come. The lake is clearly a part of Guilford. The lake ownership is not an issue. And it's totally irrelevant whether the state owns it or we own it, because we've serviced it. The town has already set the precedent by removing weeds via hydro raking and through harvesting and through various herbicides over the years. At our last meeting that we met with you, you asked us to go before the meet with the Park and Rec Commission and get involved in their budget. Unfortunately, when we went there, we were told that they're in charge of just the beach, not the whole lake. So then I called you back and I spoke to you, and you said to wait till we see what happens with the state grant that we pursued and pushed to get the town to apply for. And you appointed Kevin McGee and Rick Maynard for this grant, this $36,000 grant. But as you know, with the cuts, we can't be guaranteed that we're gonna get anything. So we're concerned with the stewardship of all aspects of the lake. And that grant is just for the invasive weeds of the lake, not the native weeds or the silt buildup or the dam or anything else. We can't apply for grants because we're a nonprofit association, but the town can write grants and apply for grants. And we'd like you to put at least $50,000 in this year's budget for some form of weed control, via herbicide treatment or hydro raking or weed harvesting, or and have this budget item in your budget every year from now on. In the attachments, you'll see this pamphlet has 2 sections. One is an informational section, the other there's attachments. In the attachment, you'll see a proposal that Ben Sylvester had aquatic herbicide come down from Massachusetts and give a proposal for the cost of just doing the north 15 acres of the lake, and it's broken down by color, and it's broken down by what the harvesting and herbicides and the hydro raking on the north end. That gives you an idea of just what one section of taking care of the lake is gonna cost. Then right there, it's $41,000 just for that north section. We would also like you to pursue the Quanapag Lake dredging project for the south 2,000 feet of Lake Quanapag, that the town spent $75,000 for this study to be completed by Don Ballou from 2007 to 2009. He completed it in March of 2009, and then at that time Carl was in, and we had a meeting up at Melissa Jones School, and the recommendations were that this would cost us about $3.3 million project. It's kind of been shelved, put away, and nothing's happened since then because we haven't had the money. So I'd like that to be brought to the forefront. We also have to have a lake manager, a part-time lake manager. It doesn't have to be a full-time manager. It doesn't have to be a paid position. But we haven't had one since Ed Finger left, and I'm not sure how many years ago that was, but it was 12, 15 years ago. We need to have this position so the town has a contact person to oversee the lake and supervise the maintenance, and also to provide multi-bid projects and apply for all grant money that's available and work with us as well, and to help provide for good stewardship of the lake. We just can't keep overloading your present employees with many hats that they may have to be required to do. I know Kevin McGee is booked with everything that he's got to do, and tree manager, and he helped write this last grant, but there's many grants out there, and it takes time to find them and to apply for them and get all the information together. And we can't depend on the money from the state that we asked for, because, like I said, the budget cuts are going into effect, and even if we do get part of that $34,000 grant, automatically $8,000 of it is going for the Bantech mats that they're just gonna use in front of the beach, which Rick Maynard has talked about those. They're mats that they put down, the fire department's gonna put them down underwater, and hopefully it's kind of a trial thing to make sure, see if it works or not. It has worked in some other areas out in Old Lyme. Rogers Lake has done it, but here in Lake Quanapug, we have the boats going back and forth for the crew teams, and there's a little more speed than the 6 miles per hour, so I know on my side, I get the waves moving back and forth, I can hear them against the dock, and the boats are bouncing, so we'll see what happens with the Bantech barriers, but according to Rick Maynard at the last Park and Rec Commission meeting, he stated that approximately 20,000 people used Lake Quanapug last year. People from all over the state use Lake Quanapug. Choate School uses it for their crew team. The high school uses it for their boating classes and their crew team. Fishermen from all over the state use it for fishing, especially since it's known, Lake Quanapug is known as a trophy lake. Many swim classes are taught there. And then every evening you'll see swimmers practicing long distance swimming, coming from one side of the lake to the other, kind of doing a triangle. They start on the beach side and they come across and then they go up and over. Thousands of people kayak and boat our lake every single year. The proposal that Don Ballou wrote, that the town spent $75,000 that they got a grant from in 2009, was not just to dredge the south 2,000 feet of the lake, but it was also to build a new dam and new culverts and eliminate future intersection flooding, which happens when there are heavy rains and flooding. Lake Drive and Hoop Pole Road really become a problem, and I have some pictures, but my printer ran out of colored ink, so I'll just pass these around. But these are taken from Don Ballou's report, and that'll show you how bad the flooding gets there. It becomes totally impassable, just like 146 and Chaffinch Island and Long Hill Road become. I know we're not on the evacuation route like those roads are in case of an emergency, but this whole area becomes totally impassable. Pictures of Lake Drive, like I said, are available if you want to copy them from that, or copy them from Don Ballou's report. The project was not just to see if the materials were good enough to sell from the bottom of the lake, but also it would eliminate the weed growth in the south 2,000 feet and get rid of that 3 to 4 feet of silt that's built up. The culverts at the south end of the lake, if you go out and you inspect them, you go on the backside and where Buster's cows are and you look, you'll see that the water is coming on around the sides of the culverts, not just through the culverts. So this is starting to totally weaken away and deteriorate. So in order to perform the Quanapug Lake dredging project, there will have to be lots of monies obtained from various sources such as town, the state, and federal and other private sources, especially those that contribute to the environmental and recreational projects. Don Ballou's report proposed also that to redo that whole culvert area there and revamp that whole section, the road section. We haven't had any accidents there, luckily, because you know it's a 4-way stop and there's a lot of traffic coming. Everybody that heads to North Madison or Madison heads across Hoopole Road and down as a shortcut instead of going all the way down 77, so there's a tremendous amount of traffic there. But I'd like to see if we can't work on getting some economic development grants for this multi-million-dollar project, or get some infrastructure involved in some highway or roadway infrastructure grants to be able to get this project done like we are at Chaffinch and 146 and Long Hill and so forth. And then one final thing I'd like to say is that the town, maybe it'd be more, instead of me asking them, would be better if the town could possibly work with them or ask them to contribute some more monies to maintaining Lake Quantapug on a yearly basis, especially since they don't pay taxes to the town and they have the largest section of land on Quantapug lakefront. They donate $1,250 a year now, which is just the interest that's coming off a large endowment that Ben Sylvester made years ago to Choate School, but nobody knows where that money is right now. It hasn't come to the town. We've got a letter, I sent you a letter that I received down in Florida a couple of years ago saying the money is there, but when Park and Rick Maynard checked into it, no one knows anything about it. So, and even Choate didn't even know about it. So I think we should at least ask them to pay something besides just the interest coming off an endowment that one of our Friends of Quantapug have made, to Choate School, especially since the property, at least make it equal to what the property taxes they would pay each year. I'm sure they're capable of doing that. And then in closing, I would just like to say, if you have any questions, I'm more than willing to answer any of them. The pamphlet gives you a list of at least 20 studies or so that have been done with all other attachments and a real good brief history. And it gives you a treatment and proposals and samples. In that second section on the attachments, there's a sample of a past correspondence that Ben Sylvester had with Aquatic Control for the north 15 acres of the lake, and that's where I came up with just that $41,000 to take care of the north end of the lake. The boat ramp is a real mess now. The silt is really built up, and the weeds are just unreal there. They're just clogging up everything. So there's plenty of information available here. You don't have to do much research, and I have all the 21 studies if anyone wants them, and I have a whole pile of letters of correspondence between the town and everybody else over the last 10, 15 years. I only included a couple of them to show that the Conservation Commission even said that out of their budget, when Jennifer Alcott was chairman, that $5,000 a year should be allotted to Lake Quantapug. And then the $1,250, from that Choate has already committed. So I mean, there's just a little bit. I know Jennifer's not involved in that right now, but these are just some of the issues, and that's where I think some funding should be coming from. And I really look forward, and all of us do here, and this is just a few. A lot of people couldn't make it because they're working, but the Friends of Quantapug really look forward to working with all of you. And since this is a crown jewel of the town, we really don't want this just to develop into a smelly swamp area like the south end basically is now, especially when there's a drought or there's no rain. Thank you very much for your
Joan, thank you very much, and I appreciate all your efforts and the Friends of Lake Quantapug for keeping on top of this. As you know, I met with your group, in October? Pardon?
September 11th.
Was it that,
Yeah.
September 11th? And also I was joined,
Do you have copies of your comments?
yeah, she'll get a copy.
Sure.
And I was joined with Representative
Okay. I
Candelora.
didn't make copies of these because I was
If you
real,
wanna
yeah.
keep 'em,
No, that's
we'll
all right.
make some.
I can print them off.
I was joined with
Pass it down.
Representative Candelora and Senator Kennedy and Representative Scanlon. We were all there.
Right.
And at that time, we were in the process of putting the grant together. The grant was filed November 5th. We were supposed to hear the first week in December.
Yeah.
Today is January 4th. We have not heard yet. I talked to Representative Candelora as late as last week. I think it was New Year's Eve I spoke to him. And the whole thing that's holding it up is the $93 million budget deficit, because the governor has the right to pull it back.
Right, I understand.
He did make his decision last week. I think it was just before the 31st, or maybe on the 31st of December. I went through his cuts. I did not see in the deep cuts
Good.
Deep, I mean Department of
Environmental.
Okay, environmental protection. I did not see a cut to that grant. Now, I could have missed it, so hopefully it's still in there.
Yeah.
But Representative Candelora tells me, and I know you've been in contact with him, that Deep wants to award the grant. So I'll try to make another call today and see where we are at that grant. Now, the grant is for $64,000.
Right, and we-
32 from the town, 32 from the state.
Right,
That, as we all know, is just a start.
right.
Okay.
And that's for invasive weeds, not any native weeds.
Well, they don't want us to do anything with the native weeds.
Yeah, well,
Deep is
I know.
being such a pain in the rear end. And I cleaned that up, by the way. Because we are such, as you know, you've been involved with this longer than any of us have. We are under such restrictions, what we can do to that lake, that it's really, really difficult. I mean, the town engineer, I asked him to stay because I wanted him to
Yep.
hear your presentation. What we really want to do, which would solve the problem for many, many years, would be to dredge that lake, to put a trench
Yep,
down the side, construct a new dam, and put new culverts in there. So we would be able to control the level of the water. And by controlling the level of the water, we'd be able to kill off the invasive plants.
right.
As you know, Deep will not let us do that because they're worried about certain species of fish and certain species of the weeds.
Right.
But that will would correct the problem for many years. I don't know what else to do, but what goes, we're gonna put a ton of money every year in cutting down these invasive weeds. And to me, that's not the way to do it, but that's the only way we can do it.
Well, that's why, when you
We'll
look
do
at
what we have to.
aquatic control, you know, they have ideas and LICO has ideas, and that, it basically comes down to hydro raking, harvesting, and herbicides.
Yeah, and the grant was for the mats for the beach, which will probably work,
Yep,
okay? And for the herbicides, for the
a little bit of the north end,
north end and for the shoal area.
and the sandbar area.
Yeah, well, okay, I call it the shoal, but
Okay.
you're probably right when you say the sandbar. But that's what we can do in the current budget. Now, the problem with this current budget, and I'm being very honest with you here, is that we have a very tough budget season coming up. And what I mean by that, in 2017. That's the budget I alluded to the board, that we're gonna start hearing from the departments in about 3 weeks. Our debt service is gonna go up by 2.7 million because of the high school. This is the bubble, this year and next year. So I can't put much more into that budget than Park and Rec has already put into it. Now, that's this year, I'm not talking about next year. So, there's not much I can promise on it, beyond the grant.
Yeah,
Okay.
but we still can apply for grants from other.
Absolutely, absolutely, I'm being very honest
Choate School.
with you about it, okay? The other point I want to make, in speaking to Representative Candelar, I said, please get me on the calendar to see the Commissioner of Deep. I want him to hear from me, First Selectman of Guilford, about the problems of the lake. The state keeps saying it's their lake, so we can't do much. Well, if it's your lake, do something about it. And I want to present to him the plans that the town engineer, Jim Portley, has for the lake. And say, can we do something with this? Then we'll see what we can do about money. If I have to float a bond issue in maybe 2 years from now, that will correct this problem for years to come, then we'll see if we can do that. That's my plan, and that's what I'll try to do. But for right now, I can't do much more than pursue that grant and support whatever money Park and Rec is gonna put into their budget.
Joe, are they Deep saying that they won't allow the rebuilding of the dam based upon
The dam we can rebuild,
We can,
but it's not gonna do much
because we're
if
still
we
gonna
can't
have-
dredge that channel.
Right,
All right, Jim?
still gonna have the same problem.
We have other.
Because we've been working this for a
And
couple
they
of
won't
years.
let you dredge it because of the ecosystem. They won't let you dredge it because they wanna protect certain elements.
It's gonna endanger the wildlife there.
Yeah, that,
And plants.
their whole idea is, and we've been back and forth, Joan knows more about it than I do. But there's so many issues that they have regarding fisheries, and they bring another group of people every time you have a meeting that has some other concern about it. There are lakes in the state that are, because of the way the dams are set up, they allow the water to drain. They'll take a cold winter, and they'll drain the water down 10 feet, say. And that 10-foot area where the water drops, the freeze cycle kills off a lot of these species, that the invasive, all kinds of weed growth. It does cause the fish to kind of migrate to where the deep pools, and you have a lake up there with 2 very deep pools that I think are more than sufficient
48.
to support the fish life. But they are opposed to do anything like that. We went through it, we would have to talk to folks around the lake and get them all to sign out the fact that on a periodic basis, you're gonna drain that lake down 10 feet to kill off this weed growth. And there would be times that you'd have a mud flat out there. During the winter, you close the gate, let the water build up. In the spring, you'd have the full lake back in effect. And to me, that's the permanent solution. It's all based on work that Don Ballou did. He did a great report. I mean, it was really a very thorough, excellent report. It was predicated on the idea back when we first started, is that you could dig out all the south end and sell that material if it was good quality, if it was
Yeah.
sand or gravel. Investigation proved that it wasn't very good in terms of material that could use for road sanding or anything like that. It would be just fill, it's very organic. It may be over a period of time, somebody could, at a huge volume of it, use it for cover material or just fill. But, so there's no real market to sell that material. So there's an alternate then would be to dredge a channel on, what we had talked about, I think back when we met with them, the east side of the lake, let that water drain down to a new dam that would allow the water to be dropped. And that would, I think, resolve a lot of these issues. But that's an engineering solution, it's a structural solution. The environmental issues are the ones that are raised by DEP. And I think they just don't want to do anything that disturbs the kind of the balance that they see occurring there. They will tell you that's a natural process. The eutrophication of that lake is a very natural process. I'm sorry, they created a dam there. That whole idea that it's a natural lake is preposterous. That wasn't, somebody introduced the dam there. That wasn't natural. So why not allow us to manage the lake in a way that takes into account the fact that there's a dam there that was put there by man, and let the lake be enjoyed by the folks around it, and the community in general and the state. But that kind of argument falls on deaf ears. But
So,
I think that's a solution.
I'm 100%, in support of the lake. I mean, let's face it, I agree with you. It's almost on the par with the green. And we have to,
Well, it is.
Yeah,
It's a
okay.
jewel.
but I know you understand where the problems are. It's, it's money. And by you going to Park and Rec and coming here and just keeping it in the
We're not gonna
forefront,
stop, yeah.
it's,
gonna be
it's what has to be done,
Yeah.
okay? And Representative Candelora is 100% behind the project.
So is Senator Kennedy,
And Senator Kennedy, who's on the chairman of the Environmental Committee.
right.
I spoke to him
And his son goes to church.
at the senior center a couple of weeks ago. And by the way, all 3 representatives, and 2 representatives and the senator, are committed to write letters in support of us getting this money. There's no question about it. I've spoken to all 3 of them. So, no one is against this. deep is the problem.
It sounds like it's more than just money though, Joe. And even if theoretically we had the money, they still wouldn't let us do.
But we can do
Well-
herbicide treatments and
Yeah.
hydration.
For the
We've done
treatment, which
hydration
is,
before.
it's a yearly
Expense.
process, it's a Band-Aid.
Right.
The-
But that's
the-
what I mean. It's still not gonna take care of it.
Correction of the problem is what the town
Yeah.
engineer said. That's what DEEP has to
Plus some-
understand. And
plus
look,
herbicides,
like
yeah.
Candlewood Lake, they do that every year. But the problem with Candlewood is that it's a man-made lake, so they're not allowed to do that. This is not a man-made lake. But Jim brings up the point. It is, that because of the dam, maybe it is a man-made.
I heard originally it was 2 lakes and that sand
Yeah.
one was a road.
We have some
But-
good people on
But DEEP has got to be made to understand that, and when we meet with the commissioner, that's one of the arguments we want to tell them.
There's other people who'd like to also speak.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay. Thank you.
Between you and I, we used up 3 minutes, I guess.
I know.
Okay. State your name and address, please.
Margie Schultz, 628 Lake Drive. I'm reading a statement from Charla Nitsch, and she couldn't be here today, so I don't want to go over everything that Joan just went over, but I'll just state her main points, and that is that we really do need an annual line item on the budget for the lake. There are seasonal treatments recommended by 25 years of reports that must be implemented annually. These minimal maintenance tasks must be completed consistently. Simple consultation with aquatic control technology will lead to the treatment plan. The most recent recommendation includes $40,000 for maintenance just on the north end of the lake. Is this enough? No. In addition to the necessary annual lake maintenance, there are other recommendations that will help slow or stop the degradation of the lake. Educational materials should be created and presented to Guilford residents living in the 1,700-acre watershed to instruct on the impact of household chemicals, lawn fertilizers, and faulty septic systems. Again, scientific evidence indicates that specific human behaviors expedite the natural decay of the lake. There's a state-funded study to dry dredge the lower lake, reroute the water, and reconfigure the roads. The total project was estimated to cost $3.3 million. This is a solution that should be considered separately from the necessary annual lake maintenance. Guilford residents need a single contact person given the task to oversee the consistent care and maintenance of the lake. We used to have one, but we no longer have one. All funding sources should be considered. In addition to state funding, there are federal and foundation grants that target specific problems. The town should invite Choate to pay fees associated with cleaning and maintaining their 0.25 acres around the Choate boat docks. The conclusion is we urge the fine Guilford Selectmen to demonstrate that Lake Quanapug is a valuable town asset by 1, adding a lake care maintenance to the annual budget, 2, designating a contact person or a lake manager who is authorized to oversee consistent lake care and address lake-related issues, and 3, research long-term options for slowing the lake degradation and seeking funding for these projects.
Thank you. And again, thank you for serving on the Veterans Committee. I appreciate it. Next.
No escape, I have to speak. Firstly, I'd like to thank you for having so many visitors here. I think that you were at the meeting with Kennedy at the firehouse, and I think you can see there's a lot of interest in this whole issue. I'm Robin Grieve, by the way. I live on Lake Quanapug. I moved there in, 1968. And I'll just add that at that time, the lake was beautiful, absolutely clear. The water was crystal clear. And I think now everybody is in total agreement that we have to do something. And I was very encouraged, sir, to hear your comments that it's being taken seriously, but you've got a real budget problem. Now, this is my personal comment now. I think from having worked in big industry for many, many years, it's easier to go big than small. These $5,000 here, $50,000 here, in my polite opinion, is irrelevant, because it's a small amount of money and you're not really solving the problem. You're actually wasting money. It would be much better to do stopgap, but these little corrections, you're only solving it in a small area of the lake. We've got to look at the whole project. And I think that Mr. Portley's comments were very good. This is an artificial lake. And I'm not a lawyer, but one thing I've learned about lawyers is don't ask their opinion, because if you ask the opinion, you have to receive it. So it's better just to say, look, it's an artificial lake. Let us put together a deal with the town. It's our lake, and let's go fix the damn thing. And I think your ideas of the dam, there are various different ways you can look at that dam, and maybe we can do it more cheaply. We could put another dam in front of the existing dam. We could take all the dirt and silt buildup there, pull it out of the lake, and raise the level of the edge there to be level with Lake Drive. Now, do we need to have an opinion to do that? I think we just need money and a digger, right? I mean, let's go do it. And let somebody tell you to come and stop doing it.
That's when you need the lawyer.
No, you don't
After
need the
they've
lawyer.
arrested you.
So the best thing to do is, you said it absolutely correctly. We've got to get some money, and I don't know the detail of these bond issues and when we can do it. But once you've got that money, my experience on budgets is once you get the big number, it doesn't matter whether it's 1 million, 2 million, or 3. Now there's a debt payment, debt service, but you extend the payment period, right? So we got to find some way of financing it, and then you'll have the money to do all this 50,000 and 5,000 from Choate. I mean, I'll give you $5,000 if you want to fix it, but it's not going to do it. Quote. But I'm serious. I think that the way to solve this thing is you've got to get some decent financing, and it's a one-time issue. So I won't say any more, but you have my support. Joan, thank you for all your work and the presentation. I think the detail that's in here documents the situation very well, and all the backup documents, you can read it till you're sick of it. Joan asked me to read this letter. This letter is from Pat Taylor, who couldn't be here today, and it basically is the same story, just repeating it. I'll just read it quickly. Good morning, Selectmen. As a friend of Lake Quannapock, I'd like to express my concern and support for an ongoing program from the town to address the deteriorating condition of the lake. Over the past 20 years, the town has funded various sporadic projects and have attempted to address the weed and silt buildup issue on the lake. It is truly time to start supporting ongoing effort, one that is managed and funded on a yearly basis, if we are going to preserve the quality of the lake for posterity. Just like there's an ongoing continuous maintenance program for roadways, sidewalks, public buildings, we need a continuous program for the valuable resource of Lake Quannapock. I read in the newspaper, one sees large amounts of money secured for set aside for new lighting, park lots, sidewalks, and other turf fields, etc., all valuable projects. Our local officials wonder why no effort of this magnitude is being put into a very large community resource. To begin weed control, it would cost no more than $1 million. I wish you got that number, but please, plus it would be secured with other projects. In conclusion, I'd like to urge our elected and trusted overseers of the town's well-being that you begin to pay special attention to this community need. as you begin budget review in the upcoming fiscal year, that you set aside funding for the ongoing project as well as continuing to research and track the state and federal funding. You are experts and have the ability and capability to protect Lake Quannapoag just as all other public venues in the town. The time to act is now. Pat Taylor.
Thank you.
I have copies of those for
Do
you.
you, is that, well, that's, you gave that one.
We can pass this.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Action. All right. Oh. Old man.
Joan, if you give them to Tracy, she'll make sure we get copies.
But
of
if
it.
you guys want to.
Okay. Yeah.
Joan, was Friends already in existence, or you just formed it?
No, we've been in existence,
Yeah.
we've been a proactive nonprofit group who have kind of, when issues come up, we rise up and kind of fight for what we want.
For the lake, okay.
We stopped ice fishing on Lake Quannapoag. It's one of the 3 lakes in the state of Connecticut where no ice fishing is allowed. With the currents there, and there's never any even freeze across that lake, and since there's 167 other lakes or 166 other lakes that people can ice fish, they can leave Lake Quannapoag as is. And then we had a gun club issue and a lead issue and a noise issue with the guns. We've fought all those issues and done quite well.
Anybody else wishing to address the board? Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Dwayne Orlowski. I live at 60 Blanks Boulevard on the lake. And I just want to emphasize 2 things that people have said. One, that the town continues to take leadership to find solutions that challenge the lake and addressing the ongoing maintenance of the lake, regardless of which governmental entity has legal accountability for the lake. So I'm really encouraged that you're going to, First Selectman, that you're going to be meeting with DEEP and take that leadership. Because it seems like it's not just a financial issue, it's a political issue. And certainly is going to take your office and to spearhead through that thing. The other thing is that I think I'd like to emphasize that the town establish some position, like a lake manager, within the town government to manage the ongoing maintenance of the lake and advocate for its proper funding during the budgetary process each year. One of the things that's really frustrated us in trying to find out where to go is that it seems like there is no one entity within the town government who is focused on the entire lake. The Park and Recreation is really doing a good job of the areas that they're responsible for. But when it comes to the rest of the lake, there doesn't seem to be somebody who's looking out for the town's interests on an ongoing basis. So I'd really like to support some kind of establishment of a lake manager, and in addition maybe assign that responsibility to one of the commissions that is appropriate to doing that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ken?
Hello again, Ken McKenzie, 6 Broad Street. A couple of people, Joan mentioned the 3 crown jewels in Guilford, the marina being one of them. Somebody else mentioned you 5 as being stewards of the town, which you are. I have a couple of concerns. One, nothing we can do about it now, but it's under your tutelage. What's happening down at the Marina with the Stonehouse, we all know, is quite controversial. I'm disappointed by the decisions that P&Z has made thus far. But on a separate matter, you had a meeting at the last meeting where you had an executive session. The town owns a piece of property just south of Pages Lane, which is right near Chittenden Beach, down behind Arrow Paving. And I believe that the taxpayer is entitled to more information with what is being contemplated for this use of property. I myself know very little about it, and I feel like I know more than most people do. There is Navtech Newmar, which is just over the train tracks. It's owned by a developer, the same developer that owns 66 High Street. I'm sure he's a nice man. I know he's a wealthy man. What I don't understand is how the town can consider building a waste treatment facility using taxpayer money to allow this developer to build high-density housing where the Navtech Lumar facility is. One of the proposals being discussed is to place 100 condo units, plus more than 100 condo units on that property and lease the town's septic waste treatment facility to this developer to make this possible. We've already spent $65,000+ on studies for this proposal. I don't understand why the taxpayer is funding studies that benefit one individual, wealthy individual. That property, the developer, in my opinion, the waste treatment facility, should be put on their own property. I know there's been talk about putting fields on top of a waste treatment facility. I've never seen a waste treatment facility that doesn't emit odors, which are not pleasant, so I would not want to play baseball on top of a waste treatment facility. I think there are numerous other uses to which that property could be used. It's currently home to the only nesting pair of bald eagles in town, who've now been there for 3 years, I think. So I think the public at least needs to be made aware of it before I see something on an agenda coming up with regard to Connecticut Statute 824, I think it is. And I surmise that it has to do with this piece of property. I could be wrong on that, but again, I think that the public is entitled to more information. The 5 of you are responsible for what's happening down there, and I think at a minimum, people are entitled to more details, more options that you're considering before we spend more taxpayer money. And I'm sure there's some economics behind it, that where we're going to get paid back over God knows what period of time, and you know, there are liability issues associated with it. But again, I think that all of that needs to be presented to the taxpayer to ensure. Personally, to me, there's not really a number. To me, I would rather see it be used to connect to Chittenden Park, but I'm just one vote in town. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. But I hope that the economics of whatever it is you're considering doing with that town piece of property are far outweigh any potential public benefits that might come of it through other use. And again, I would just ask that you share whatever it is you're discussing with the public prior to making decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I answer some of those concerns?
Sure.
You seem to indicate that we're not open about things, or that we're...
Excuse me.
No,
It's not going to be a back and forth.
no.
You can
You want me to go say?
I just want to make a general statement. We go through a process regarding any kind of town property, regarding any vote that we take, regarding any change in planning and zoning, and it's totally public. If we have to have an executive session so that we can discuss different possibilities, nothing is voted on. We might come out of the executive session and either immediately or a short time later or even a month later or whatever, accept some kind of proposal from, whether it's a business entity or whether it's a group of people from town, citizens. But everything is done publicly. There is nothing that's hidden. There is nothing that we don't share with the public. And we have to follow a procedure to ensure that. It's just like making a comment about, well, I hear complaints about sidewalks. Every time we do a sidewalk, it goes out to bid. And we discuss it, and we discuss the bids. And then we vote on it. But everything is out in the open. Just like we had the public hearing this morning, before we take a vote. It's on the website, so people can see it for weeks and weeks and weeks. And certainly contact the Selectmen's office if there's any concerns. I just don't want the feeling out there that we're doing things in a hidden way, or that we're not following a procedure that protects the rights of citizens to know ahead of time what we're going to vote on.
Okay, thank you, Carl. I just want to follow up on Carl's comment. Executive sessions are held primarily for two reasons. When they concern a personnel issue, or we're discussing negotiation strategies that might involve dollar numbers. And to your point, that issue down there was not involving any one developer. We were negotiating, and I usually don't comment, but I will. That issue down there was to discuss strategies for possible lease or sale of that property. And to keep in mind, that property, two things, was bought with the intention of creating a community septic system. You can look back at the record. And the sale, lease, or purchase of any property has to go to town meeting or referendum, depending on the amount of the purchase price or sale price. Gary, you're on the Land Acquisition Committee, is that correct?
They all go to referendum. They have to go to referendum.
Okay, that's.
Or town meeting.
Or town meeting.
Or town meeting.
Depending on the price. If it's over $1 million, it goes to referendum. If it's not, it goes to town meeting. So.
Which may or may not go to referendum at that point.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Susan Klaus, 66 Point Arrowhead Road. And I just wanted to give you an idea that if DEEP does not cooperate in the way that you want DEEP to cooperate, that you might entertain the alternatives on an ongoing basis of the hydro raking and the sonar herbicide as ways of maintaining keeping the weeds from getting out of control, which is what they are now. And I think of it in terms of, as a gardener, just weeding on an ongoing basis. It keeps it from getting to that overgrown level, or mowing a field that might need to be mowed. That's just something I would like you to consider in case DEEP doesn't go the way you want them to go.
You're right. I mean, that's what we did 2 years ago. Unfortunately, the vendor or the contractor that we hired wasn't the best one.
But if we could do it right, it could be a way to maintain on a yearly basis and fix the problem that way.
And I think some of the folks hired the same guy. Joan, you did too, right? Yeah.
But that was only for a small part of the lake.
Yeah.
If you're gonna do the whole lake, it's a lot more money.
Right.
I mean, you don't have a budget for that.
We can buy our own hydro raker.
Yeah, well, that's the ongoing.
Right.
That harvester thing.
Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
I'm Karen Strawson Brereton from 472 Lake Drive. And I was trying to avoid coming up here at all costs. But I think I'm very encouraged by hearing that you've stayed on top of this over these last number of years. I guess now I feel I need to have a greater sense of our path forward. And I appreciate the fact that there's no possibility of floating a bond issue this year. But as we look at the remediation, that line item, this particular budget, and our hope that that's going to go through, don't we need to look forward to the 2017 period at this point as well? How long will it take us to put together a bond issue? It seems to me that we need to start planning now for that period.
Is that a direct question?
It's a direct question.
Okay.
Actually, I'm asking for your advice.
Okay.
If you...
It doesn't take us long to put a bond issue together. We could have one ready this time next year to present to the voters in April of 2017.
And how would we get to that particular point? I mean, obviously, you're going to have DEEP on your schedule.
Mm-hmm.
But what then happens?
it's voted upon by this board and then presented to the Board of Finance sometime in March.
Okay.
And then it's presented to the voters at the annual town budget meeting. Help me out, Tracy, March, the end of March sometime?
Beginning of April.
Beginning of April. And then it goes on the ballot
Okay.
in mid-April.
So that means that work would begin around 2018, most likely?
No.
Because we'd have to send something out to bid?
No, it can go out to bid right after the earliest. I'm being optimistic now.
Okay.
Right after the bond is appropriated. I mean, right after the referendum is approved.
And then,
Because the town engineer has pretty much got a design already.
and
Drawn up.
that's provided the deep allows this. Is this a one-year program that you anticipate? Is this a multi-year program, this dredging?
It's, Jim,
3 years.
A 3-year process?
It's probably 2 construction seasons.
Yeah, 2 years. 2 years.
Yeah,
Okay,
because what
so-
you need to do is prepare, you'd have to rebuild the intersection of Hoopo and Lake Drive. Drop the culverts low enough so that as you rebuild the dam, the water can be allowed to flow out. And so that would be one construction season, and my anticipation is then you would go through the second one, rebuilding the dam.
I guess the best way to answer this is like, with any construction
Yeah.
project, it's gonna take
But that,
at least a couple of years, but it's worth it to have the long-term benefits.
Absolutely, and that's why I'm here thinking in terms of the bond issue, because this piecemeal remediation is not doing any of us good, really. It's,
No,
yeah,
no, I
it's
agree.
not. And as I said, I think we're all very encouraged that,
But-
everyone is in agreement that this lake is in decline, and we need to step in and do something about it now, if not yesterday. So it sounds as if we've rolled this up to you effectively, and and you delegate downward. We're here to help in any way we can.
Okay.
And it's good to know that there's going to be some action taken this year.
But the key is getting deep on board.
Well, but then, that's one alternative. I mean, we have other alternatives also. If it can't be perfect, it can at least be better than it is, and we'd have to
True.
accept the fact
True.
that we'd have to have a long-term plan.
True.
And if the long-term plan involves hydro rigging and buying a hydro rig, all that detailed stuff that we really don't care about right now. But essentially, how we're going to maintain this resource that we have.
So maybe you can, because I think what your concern is like, where do you go next? I mean, you have an idea, but
Absolutely. I mean,
maybe, Joe,
this
you
is
could,
great, but
keep us updated, I guess, next month. But obviously, it sounds like Joan's the point person.
Yes.
Maybe once you talk to Deep, setting up a meeting or something and sort of advising, because if Deep's not on board, then you go to Plan B or C or D, whatever it is.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I thank you very much.
Joan and I talk a lot.
Okay. And thank you.
Thank you.
for
Anybody else? Okay,
I would just like to say I have copies of their speeches for everybody.
okay. We'll make them as part of the record meeting.
I mean, for you guys.
Any further business to come before the board?
Move it, Chair.
All those in favor?
Second.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate your attendance.
The ones that you're doing.